I'd always wanted to see the Paris Catacombs, but not the official tour, the real tunnels. The ones people talk about online, but never describe clearly. I just wanted to experience that strange underground world people said you could get lost in for days or never make it out. I thought those stories were exaggerated. They weren't. I went on a weekday afternoon when the city above was busy and loud. I followed a map someone shared in a forum, a set of old maintenance steps behind a broken fence. It looked stupidly simple. Climb down, walk straight for a while, reach the wider tunnels, take a left, and you'd be in the old ossuary part that wasn't on the official path. The moment I stepped off the ladder, the sound from above disappeared. The air felt cooler and dry, and the smell of stone and dust was stronger than I expected. I clicked on my flashlight and took a slow breath. The tunnel ahead seemed harmless, just a low corridor with graffiti on the walls and condensation dripping from the ceiling. At first, it felt exciting, like exploring a forgotten part of the world. I walked slowly, brushing my fingers along the wall to ground myself. The map said I'd reach a wider intersection after a few minutes. When I finally got there, it didn't match the map at all. There were 3 tunnels instead of 2. The markings were different. The graffiti wasn't the same. I tried to tell myself I was misreading it. I picked the tunnel that looked most used. More footprints, more dust disturbed. I told myself it had to be right. Few minutes later, I knew it wasn't. The tunnel narrowed, then dipped slightly, then branched into another 2 paths. The deeper I went, the more the air changed. It felt still, almost warm, like it had been trapped for too long. I told myself I wasn't lost as long as I remembered my way back. So I turned around. That was the first moment my stomach dropped. The tunnel I just walked through suddenly looked unfamiliar. The walls were covered in similar graffiti, but not the same shapes I remembered. I felt a little dizzy trying to retrace my steps. I kept walking and telling myself everything was fine. But each corner I turned didn't look like anything on the map or anything I'd passed earlier. I wasn't panicking yet, but I felt that creeping tightness in my chest, the kind you get when you know something bad has started, even if you don't want to say it out loud. After what felt like hours, I heard voices, faint, echoing through the tunnels. Relief hit me so hard I almost laughed. I followed the sound until 3 people appeared at a far end of a corridor. They were wearing headlamps and carrying backpacks, clearly urban explorers. I called out, "Excuse me, hi, do you know the way out?" They stopped talking and looked at me, confused. One of them said something in French. I explained again, slower this time. "I'm lost. How do I get out? Which way?" They talked among themselves for a moment. Then one pointed down a long descending tunnel and said something that sounded like sortie. I repeated it back, unsure, and he nodded. I thanked them, even though they probably didn't understand, and started walking in that direction. Only later did I learn that sortie means exit, but they were pointing the wrong way. They probably thought I came from the other side. Maybe they didn't understand what I meant. Maybe they didn't care. Maybe they assumed I knew where I was going. Within minutes, I realized I was going deeper underground. The floors sloped more steeply. The air got warmer. Condensation dripped down the stone. My flashlight beams seemed dimmer, even though I knew the batteries were fine. That's when panic started creeping in. I stopped walking to calm myself down. I leaned against the wall, closed my eyes, and took slow breaths. It didn't help. The silence was too heavy, pressing in on me. Even my own breathing sounded out of place. My hands were shaking, and I hated how easily fear was taking over. I forced myself to keep moving. After maybe what felt like 20 minutes, I saw more light, weak but real. I rushed toward it and found another group of people. This time, 2 men and a woman. Their clothes were covered in dust, and they had robes and helmets, like they'd been crawling for hours. They looked surprised to see me alone. I tried again. "Do you know the way out? I've been walking in circles." One of the men said something quickly in French, and again, I didn't understand. The woman tried to explain, using more gestures. She pointed in one direction, then another, then shook her head and pointed somewhere else. I had no idea what she meant. I kept saying, "Exit, exit," and she finally pointed down a narrow corridor on the right. I thanked them and followed it. 5 minutes later, it dead-ended into a small chamber with low ceilings and walls covered in decades-old carvings. They hadn't understood me either. My throat tightened. I felt that sinking moment where fear slides into your body fully. No more "this is fine." No more pretending. I was really, truly lost. Exhaustion started creeping in because my adrenaline had been spiking for over an hour. I sat against the wall, trying not to cry out of frustration. The air tasted stale. My flashlight flickered once, and I almost had a full panic attack. But I couldn't stay still. Staying meant thinking. Thinking meant panicking. So I forced myself to try another tunnel. That next hour felt endless. Some tunnels were so narrow, I had to turn sideways. Others were massive, with ceilings disappearing into darkness. At one point, I stepped into a puddle so deep, the cold soaked through my shoe, and I genuinely questioned every decision that led me to that moment. I kept repeating out loud, "Just find stairs, find a ladder, find anything." I talked just to hear a voice. Then my flashlight beam landed on a large metal door. Relief hit again. Doors meant exits or maintenance shafts. I pulled on it with everything I had. It didn't move. I pushed my shoulder into it until my ribs hurt. Nothing. The silence afterward was suffocating. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal and tried to swallow the rising panic. I kept going. Eventually, after nearly 4 hours of wandering, I started seeing signs, literal signs, painted arrows pointing toward what tourists would call the official path. I followed them, praying I wasn't imagining things. Then finally, I saw faint daylight seeping from an opening in the distance. I almost ran. When I stepped out of the tunnel, I didn't immediately recognize where I was. It wasn't the entrance I'd come from. It was another hidden exit behind a maintenance shed. But I didn't care. I breathed in the cold air and felt more relief than I've ever felt in my life. My legs were trembling so badly, I had to sit down. People walked past on the street, completely unaware of the panic still pounding in my chest. Sitting on the curb outside, shoes soaked, clothes covered in dust, I looked back at that hidden exit and felt sick. 4 hours, and no one knew where I was. I kept thinking about every wrong turn, every dead end, every moment I almost gave up and sat down in the dark. What if I never made it out? That thought stayed with me long after I got back to my hotel. That I'd pushed my luck far past where it should have run out. I left Paris, knowing I'd never go near those tunnels again. Thanks for watching. No sleep tonight. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps this channel grow and keep these horrors coming. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, sleep well.